We talk about this Black Sea grain initiative, 30 million tons Ukraine produces and all that. Did you guys notice that, there was an ad of Madhya Pradesh a few days ago, which talked about that it has become number one wheat producers, not meat, wheat producer in the country. Production, 30 million tons plus. So we talk about Ukraine and you talk about USSR and Russia and so on and so forth, America and so on and so forth, and exports of Australia, wheat and all that. We export 40% of the world rice. We are the leading. And there is a corresponding little cartel which has now got made among the ASEAN countries, where Thailand has not joined. Thailand is the second largest exporter. Any day, Thailand and India can also cooperate with each other. But on their own steam, they are selling it to 192 countries. The only thing is you have to provide the umbrella. So this is the geopolitics. On one hand, you are succeeding and all that, but then there is a cartel gets formed. You have to keep a track of that. Become a member of it or become friendly member of it or handshake with them, so on and so forth, so that you are not stuck. Now, I'm not going into detail about the policy towards rice exports or the duties, similarly wheat, similarly laptop and so on. Hopefully government does these things wisely. So now, since that we have mentioned about the Black Sea, the brief background, we say that after the 22 Ukraine conflict, to some extent Russia had tried to create a blockade so that weapons don't come. Black Sea ports touch Crimea, they also touch Ukraine, various ones. And Ukraine exports most of it through Black Sea, their exports. Then their exports also go to about 50 countries or so on and so forth. Quite a bit to Africa, wherever the shortage will be there. Africa has a shortage of food grains. Because population has been going up, the productivity is not. And so they had a MOU with each other, which was brokered by Turkey and UN. And then Russia complained that they had not got their end of the bargain, that, their ships carrying grains would not be subjected to any sanctions and so on and so forth. But their own chief executive of the fertilizer plant had been sanctioned by USA, and then use of SWIFT, so that the monetary transactions cannot take place. None of those conditions were met. So finally, July 17th, when the 1 year MOU got over, Russia did not renew it. Now, Ukraine was not sitting idle. It tried a number of routes. It tried the land route via the former East European countries, Poland, etc., etc. They refused. Then, even recently, they again said that the other alternatives are not working out. Since the basic grain initiative has not been finalized, Russia has said it during G20 that they'll be happy to do it if their part of the bargain is met. So Turkey and UN are also trying to negotiate. But this other ports, three actually, but Chrono Morse will be the major one. So they have been able to try the shipment, 20,000 tons, 2 shipments. So if it works out, if it works out means geopolitics again. If they will not be blockaded by Russia. If you don't allow Russian ships to go, then they will blockade it, right? So there has to be some diplomacy in between. Now remember, if Ukraine wheat cannot go out, Ukraine is going to be in very, very bad economic shape, because it is a major revenue earner. If Russia's oil cannot go out, then they will be in very bad economic shape. So the game has to be played in a collective fashion. And we in specific companies have to be able to figure out, using our own geopolitical analysis, saying what is likely to happen and therefore how do I adjust. If Ukraine wheat cannot go out, Russian wheat can't go out, then they will be coming for Indian wheat, and the price of the Indian wheat will go up very, very high. Russia has said that they will be giving 50,000 tons to these new where coups have taken place, etc., or poor countries in Africa. Now, while we are coming to that, see what has happened. There is a francophone area, 14 countries. Their currency was also printed by France. They had to deposit 50% of what they earned in francs, euro, to the Central Bank of France. All their enterprises, nobody could do anything except permission from them about who can come and who cannot come. They are rich with resources. We had mentioned earlier, Niger has yellow cake uranium, that is, and uranium was being exported at 0.8 euro, and now they have taken over the mine and they are selling it at 112 euros. So say how many times? 112 euros per kilogram. So the resources of the Africa are sucked up, and this area has remained quasi-colonial anyway. So now 4 coups have taken place in quick succession, and as of yesterday, the Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, and maybe Gabon will come on it. They were all former colonies of France. They formed a military pact. And why they formed a military pact? Because France and US put pressure on ECOWAS, that is the grouping of the West African countries, to threaten them with sanctions. It has not worked. And then to threaten them with military action. For the time being, it has not worked. Nigeria, which is the major one, has hesitation that they don't want to get involved in any military action because Niger is their neighbor, and things will spill over. Now, rest of the economics and all that, detailed history, one is not going into it, except to say that they have been very, very heavily exploited, very, very heavily exploited. And it's not that coup is done only by one type of group and all that. Both groups, there are coups and there are cross coups and all that. So we will attach some links which will tell the history of all the coups in the particular area. So as of now, the whole thing is on a threshold. Niger has asked the French to take away their military and to close down their embassy and let the ambassador and other staff go away. Now they are saying no for the time being, but my own assessment is that it's just a matter of few days that they'll have to do it because they have cut off the electricity, they have cut off the food lines, etc., etc. And the good old thing comes. Now France will announce sanctions, and European Union will announce sanctions, and then USA will announce sanctions, and US has got a military base in in Niger, and they have 28 military bases in rest of the Africa. But for the time being, going back to the good things, in G20 they have also announced a transcontinental railway starting from Lesotho, Angola, and then going up to the Zambia, the copper area. And whether now USA supports it financially or not is a different matter. And China is already building a transcontinental railway in Africa as part of the BRI. They have a scheme, which connects the whole thing like this and so on. So we will put up the additional things. Now, going further, the day before yesterday, G77 plus China, but actually 135 countries joined to hold a conference saying that nobody hears us and all that, so we are all very small, so we will get together. India is a member also. China is not a member, but it's called 77 plus China. And they started their meeting in Havana yesterday, the capital of Cuba. Those who don't know, Cuba was very important in the 60s when USSR almost took a nuclear weapon to be installed there while Mr. Kennedy was the US president, and there was a tip-off, and in the end, better sense survived, and Russians took back this thing, but it was in Cuba. But from that day onwards, they put sanctions on them, and those sanctions continue till today, which makes that society as completely untouchable. They can't do anything, and so on. Finally, people start going to USA itself, legally or illegally, and all that. So Cuba is organizing this particular conference. We will, in one more session, summarize this also as to what has really happened. But it is considered toothless, or it is actually equivalent to UN. So now the UN conference also started today, the UN General Assembly, and some major heads of the government will be addressing it. US, Bangladesh, maybe Pakistan, and others. So now, broadly speaking, France will try to mobilize EU and US for sanctions against these countries. There have been coups, there are good reasons, bad reasons. I'm not going into it right now. Fact of the matter is that people must be tired because people have clapped it. People have celebrated that change. And they have then formed a military pact of their own, and they have taken over the resources. I've given you just one example. Uranium, the biggest mine, it takes care of something like 40% needs of uranium of France. And at what dirt cheap price? Less than €1 per kg of uranium. Not its ore or something like that. So then, to their credit, in 1935, it was a French scientist who actually figured out, that if you do certain things to this kind of sand, then you have a lot of heat generated, and it is actually uranium. And so it gives radioisotopes are there, and you can enrich it, and then you can use it in a nuclear power plant or in a nuclear weapon. So here these dirt cheap people selling it at dirt cheap price, and many other commodities are like that. Cocoa, for example. And it's a good old economic development thing that, rather than selling raw materials, why don't you add value to it? How do you add value to it? Because you have no capital. All your capital is also sucked away. Told you about CFA France. 50% of the money has to be deposited in the bank. Then you can borrow it back if you like, pay money, interest on it. Your own money. So that is the kind of thing which goes on under the umbrella of IMF and so on, who are not really supporters of these organizations. That's why the pressure on reforming the multilateral institutions. That is why we're saying, or people are saying, one person, one group, one country hegemony is not a good idea. It is, all these things are only for them. Just sophisticated language is used, but it's supposed to help them. And so in climate action and so on and so forth, one has to keep one's eyes open as to why there are certain suggestions which are being made and so on. And luckily, India is becoming the leader of this global south. The global south it is called because this is bottom of the Africa and bottom of the South America and bottom of Asia and so on and so forth. Some of the richer nations are in the north. And so we will see or we'll observe what happens in Africa. Now remember, there are opportunities also. Once their colonial yoke goes away, to set up hospitals and schools and colleges and all kinds of social services, and then processing these things and using the final matter, why should they not have nuclear power plants? Because uranium is their own. So somebody has to help them to do it. Now I just recall that last 6 months also there have been Africa summits. So Africa is the flavor of the season, with China, with USA, with EU, with Russia. And in that summit, Russia, a month ago, waived off $23.4 billion worth of loans. Waived off. These countries not able to afford. Let them not worry so much about this. Waived off. It was announced there. So in various ways, the image of Russia and China and India also is quite good, perhaps better than the US and the Europe, because they are treated as the exploiters, no doubt about it. Though the media is bought and something is bought and something is bought, but there are enough people to raise this voice. But that are these really our benefactors or are these really exploiters? So this is again an issue of geopolitics to be able to understand, and the shift which is coming to Asia, one way or the other. To the extent some people like Kishore Mevwani at National University of Singapore, earlier the head of the Singapore service, saying that this is going to be the Asian century. So let's just, for the time being, close this to say that multilateralism is happening. Multilateral institutions would need to reform. There is enough pressure. The opportunities continue to be there. The persons of younger age in Japan, in Korea, China included, are not there, and India is the only one which has this younger population of that age. So the moment we think that we are not talking about our jobs in India or something like that, we can take a job anywhere in Asia. Korea wants Indian engineers. And why not Thailand? Why not Philippines? Why not this thing? So with the rest of the thing, our idea of global market should come, and not that all the time we are looking at Europe and USA. That is where they will shun you most of the time. But that is something which comes as the ideal. No, the rest of the world is also there. So that era has come of globalization of services. That era has come of global labor markets, because the domestic labor markets have become very, very tight in Europe, etc., because the children are not born, and Japan too, and therefore certain activities they can't even do, because the younger people who know the newer technologies and modern technologies, they don't even have sufficient number of people in that category to, let's say, for example, start working on AI or satellites and so on. So India has that opportunity. But geopolitics has to be kept in mind, because if relationships are not good or we don't follow it up, for example, our free trade agreements, FTAs, with practically all the groups are pending. Personally, I had thought that with G20, with side events and so on and so forth, something will get sorted out. On the other hand, Canada was about to be sorted out and they have also crossed it. UK did not happen. Australia did not happen. ASEAN did not happen. So there is something which we have to figure out about our own policy also. That if we just let it do, they will also put walls. Once they put walls, our products are not going to be very successful. So we will take up another session on FTAs. In this one, we just close it by saying that multilateralism is here. There is a multinodal word which is coming. It's not going to be unipolar, multipolar. Great swaths of human society, like Africa, is there, both for doing good work and business. And we should keep our minds open. That's why we are following those events also, what happens there, because if too many military governments are there and all that, then to manage that also is a difficult task. So we will look forward to what happens in our special session of the Parliament today, tomorrow, in the UN General Assembly, 75th, I think, and then the group of 75, whatever the output is there. So that we will take up in the next session.